Hi everyone, welcome back to the We channel where we create the life that you want deliberately, consciously, as opposed to being a pawn on the chessboard of this game called life. So you want to take your power back, and today is a really important topic. So please like, please share, please subscribe, because a lot of us, if not all of us, has experienced failure. That's the topic of today: failure and how to overcome it. So I myself have failed in every area of my life, from work to health to self-esteem to money, love, relationships, family, etc. And I've failed in big ways, they haven't been small ways. So I have experienced it. I know what it's like, and I know how debilitating it can be. So I've got a lot of clients and a lot of friends and family and colleagues and people that have been in my life and left and stayed, and people that I know in my network that have experienced failure in so many areas. I've got parents that I know that have kids that are bulimic or have anxiety disorders, that are in rehabilitation centers, and they feel completely failed as parents. They just feel a complete failure. And I have people that have been in business, and the business hasn't succeeded, and they've, myself included, I've also had ventures that have failed, and they've tried and they've put themselves out there and they've really believed in what they were doing. And that's the other thing, that they showed the best of themselves to the world. In a certain business adventure, in this example, they showed the best of their strengths. They gave their time, their energy, their attention. They ticked all the boxes, and they still failed. And that just rocked their world. They've just frozen. They can't move. I have friends that can't get out of bed. They literally cannot get out of bed because they feel lost and confused and isolated, and they have no sense of direction because of the last failure, or a failure from 10, 20, 30, 40 years ago. So that freeze point of a trauma is actually a stress point. So whether it happened when you were 5 years old, or whether you failed when you were in primary school, high school. Some people, they failed in high school and they 40, 50, 60 years old and they can't get past it. It just feels like it happened yesterday. Some people have failed in their careers. They didn't get that promotion or that accolade or that recognition, or they're not where they want to be. They didn't get that degree, and they're not worthy. They don't feel worthy or respected or valued enough in society. They feel failed by external factors like their society and government. Sometimes that's enough to devastate you. Even your point of failure and my point of failure can also differ. So you don't know what will break me, and I don't know what will break you. Everyone is different. So something that you may consider small may be a massive failure in my eyes. It may be a huge failure in my eyes that just breaks me and completely keeps me frozen in that spot. So you see me laughing and smiling, and you see me joking and having a conversation, but you don't know how frozen I am around this particular part of my life. I have friends that are going through a divorce now, and they just feel like they've failed at that relationship. They've really just are so frozen to the point where they can't have a conversation. They can't even talk about it in any objective manner. They can't imagine opening up and trusting anybody else and letting anybody else in, and loving somebody else. And I've got people that have failed in friendships, where friendships have just come and gone, myself included. I've experienced all these things as well, so I know what it feels like. And when you go through that failure, that stress point, it's actually a trauma. You can think of it as post-traumatic post-traumatic stress disorder. That's how traumatic it is. That's how powerful it is, you know. And when your body is in stress, your subconscious brain, your amphibian brain, is in charge, because now it's in survival mode. So you're in survival mode. It's either fight or flight, you know, one of the two things. If a lion is chasing you, all the power, all the blood, all the energy goes to your extremities, your hands and your legs, your limbs, so that you can run away from the danger. So when you're in stress mode, you have no capacity for anybody or anything else. There's no capacity for your family, for your kids, your babies, your friends, your pets, your career, your ambition, your drive, your energy. Everything is reduced to that stress point. So yes, you're acting, you're playing these roles of being a father, a mother, a friend, a confidant, a worker, a boss. You're playing sports, you're just acting out your life, but inside you're frozen. Because when you're in stress, you can't access those higher faculties. You can only access your 5 senses, which are not meant to be used for decision making. As I've spoken in many of my previous videos, I'm always going to allude to it in every video. Your higher faculties of reasoning, of will, of intuition, imagination, creativity, expansion, all of those amazing things that make human beings what they are and differentiate us from the rest of other species on Earth. Those things are shut down. Those things are not able to operate functionally and optimally. They can't function optimally in your life because you're under stress. But we tend to just hide that. We tend to not look at it. We tend to not have this honest conversation with ourselves about, hang on a second, I'm trying to survive in all these areas, and that particular door in my house I've closed off because I've not succeeded. So let me shut that room down in my house. Let me not open it. Let me not let the sunshine in. Let me not let the air in. Let me not let movement and happiness come into my life again, because I'm a failure. I failed at my relationship. I failed in my friendship. I failed at work. I failed at money. I failed at X, Y, and Z. I'm a waste of a human being. That's the subconscious messaging you're sending to the universe, and to your subconscious brain is further conditioning yourself to cement the false and limited beliefs that you are not worthy and you are not good enough for success, for continued sustained success and happiness in your life. So it further triggers other programming. So for example, when you're feeling that way as a failure, you feel isolated and abandoned because you can't really open up to somebody. And for people that do open up to somebody, you hear their opinions and their projections of what they have gone through, and they're projecting it all onto you. And it's further just going into this downward spiral. So you're not feeling good when you open up to people, especially people that aren't that conscious and evolved. And every single great person that has succeeded continuously in life will tell you that success and failure are two sides of one coin. No success has come without a high amount of failure. You look at everybody. You look at Elon Musk. You look at Steve Jobs. Wayne Dyer talks about this. Richard Branson, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett will tell you that most of his investments on a daily don't pan out. They're failures. They expect that rate of failure in that field. They understand it and they work with it. They make it their friend. You know, it's not a crisis. You don't jump into a tailspin when you hit that wall and when you hit that failure. And I've hit that wall in my life many times, and I've just completely frozen. You know, in the early part of my career, when I was in corporate, I'm self-employed now, I was retrenched 5 times. And each time was a blessing in disguise, and I only realized it towards the latter part of the retrenchments. So that kind of thing where I no longer, and then I kind of, well, to be honest, that I was also attracting, you know, that energy of being retrenched, of looking at myself at the mercy of other people, you know. So, but that was another conditioning that I had to throw out of my consciousness and my energy field. But at the same time, that retrenchment was actually a blessing in disguise every single time, because I wasn't doing work that I loved, I wasn't in a place that I loved, I wasn't getting the money that I loved, etc., etc., and I was manifesting a retrenchment. But all of these great people will tell you that they didn't reach that level of success by giving up. They didn't reach that level of success by just closing the door, closing shop and walking away. So you have to persevere. That's the key markings of success, that you can't give up at your freeze point. So I've got someone that produced a document last year in business. So he produced this document and he really believed in it. He's self-employed, and he put it out to the entire industry, you know, and it was a good document. It was a strong document, but it didn't generate the necessary sales at the end of that fiscal. It didn't generate anything for him. And what he sat down and he shared with me, and he said, you know, I'm just keeping up appearances. I'm so embarrassed. You know, he finds me honorable enough to share that story with me. And I value and I respect his privacy. And he opened up to me and he just said, I'm living a lie. I don't want to admit that I put my best foot forward and it failed. I did my best and it failed. I produced this document and it failed. So now for the past couple of months, he hasn't been able to get out of bed. Whereas last year he was on a high energy drive, high motivation, high inspiration, go, go, go. He was running and he was floating and he was flying, and it didn't pan out. And now he's in bed, cannot move, cannot get out of bed, because he just feels, what if I produce another document and I take it out to industry in another, even if it's another industry, and he understands now that that is his freeze point, that he started the second document and he did an outline, but he can't get beyond it. Whereas last year he could knock it out of the park easily with his drive and his know-how and his skill set. He could knock it out of the park. And this year he's just frozen because that freeze point came from last year. So he's linking it back in our talks and in our consultations. He's linking it back to that, and he's realized that that is his freeze point and he hasn't moved off. He wants to go back there and release it and forgive himself and release that shame and that guilt, because you have shame and guilt about what happened and you're scared to admit it to people. You're scared to tell people what you went through. You know, you feel afraid and embarrassed and you're living a lie and you're pretending to be successful. You're keeping up appearances. And you just don't want to just say, I failed, because in a society where everything is prized, you know, competition, drive, division, you know, there's no room for someone to say, hey, I failed, you know, and society doesn't look kindly on it. So the onus is on you to look kindly on yourself, you know. And one of the markings of that is perseverance. You don't give up. You may not pursue that particular thing. You may decide, okay, you want to call it a day, and you may decide to go into another area, for example, whether it's your personal life, your love life, your friendships, whatever it is. You may decide to transfer the amazingness of you, your skill set, the way you think, your tone, your personality, your character, your strengths, and transfer that all and be open to something else, opportunity, new love, happiness, friendships. You may transfer yourself, whether you transfer yourself to another area or keep it in the same industry, for example, in business, you want to still be open, and open to two things: open to opportunity, but open to your talents. Because one thing failure cannot take away from is your skill set. No one can take away from your skill set. No one. So people that have lost a lot of money. So Jim Rohn, the American entrepreneur in the 70s, he mentored Tony Robbins. I spoke about him in my last video, which I will link up here. But he made his fortune and then lost his fortune. So he stood as a guarantor for somebody, for another company, and that everything went fine. Back in the day, in the 70s, everything went fine, and they paid the loan back. And then, unbeknownst to him, they then applied for a second loan, and he was like, "Oh gosh, I hope they don't call me," because he doesn't think they're going to make the second loan based on their current performance in their company at the moment. And then the bank called him out of the blue and said, "Hey, you need to pay up $500 million dollars, sorry, half a million rand, $500,000. And he was in shock because the paperwork at the time, he didn't look at the fine print, which we know now in this day and age in business, you have to look at the fine print, but even now people don't. But anyway, he lost his fortune. And then he realized that you can lose everything, but you cannot lose his skills, his drive, his ambition, his ideas. His ideas cannot be taken away. His network that he's created cannot be taken away, in the example of business, So the other thing about failure is mixing it up with different things like procrastination. So you feel frozen at a certain point, whether it's 19 or 39 or 59, you feel frozen at that stress point, and you keep talking about yourself as a procrastinator. And then when you say that to your friends, that you're a procrastinator, or you talk to yourself that way, and you've mixed up labeling yourself as a procrastinator with your freeze point. So you're mixing up all these things, and they're further making you feel demotivated, uninspired, lacking direction, So that's another thing to look after, labeling yourself and confusing the issue with what really happened. Where did you last fail, and why are you looking at a failure? It's merely a setback, because if you didn't experience that failure, the beauty about failure in my life, particularly, I've experienced it, that with every failure in my private life and in my business life, and in regards to money and health, etc., in every area, if I did not fail, I would not be able to be the person I am today. And that sounds cliche, and what does that even mean? Okay, what it means is that when you don't succeed, you've navigated that landscape. You recognizing the nuances, the pitfalls of the landscape, the players, yourself and how you react in situations and how you can react better next time around. And you've learned new things, you've actually learned, you've gained knowledge, and there's nothing like better than experiential knowledge. Giving you a book and putting you through an experience, the experience is going to be way, way better. The book together with the experience is even more powerful, but the experiential, visceral feeling of failure is merely a setback, and it's actually not even a setback, it's a milestone. So convert the meaning you attach to failure. It's actually a milestone, that is going to project you into a totally different, it's going to quantum leap you into the next thing, whether it's your private life or whether it's at work. It doesn't matter. It's the same application in every scenario. It's going to quantum leap you because you've changed. So you need to recognize and celebrate when something doesn't go right in your life. The first thing you need to say to yourself is, this too is to my advantage. This is to my advantage, because you're training the brain to fire differently, to look at it differently. So the brain is used to saying to you, hang on a second, because it wants to protect you, right? So you've got to teach the brain, it's an animal. You've got to teach it, hang on a second, we want to throw out that old conditioning, that old programming, and install new programming. So your brain is trying to protect you and say, hang on a second, look at what's happening. You failed, you're not going to get anywhere. It's painful, this failure. It's debilitating. It's hurtful. It makes me sad. I'm burdened. I feel like a failure. I feel invisible. I feel at a loss. I feel demotivated. I'm anxious. I'm in panic all the time, and I'm hiding it. I'm feeling embarrassed, and I'm horrified at what's happened. So the brain is saying, hang on a second, let's not go there again. Let's not try anything new. Please, for God's sakes, let's not try anything new, because we don't want to feel like that again. We can live with this feeling. We can live with it. It's predictable. So we tend to just go back into our comfort zones, and we tend to then live in being predictable in the comfort zone. Because in a comfort zone, it's safe. I may not like my comfort zone, but it's safe. I know what I'm going to be in my comfort zone when I wake up. I know what's going to happen 5 o'clock tomorrow in my comfort zone. So we don't take a chance. We don't try something new. We don't take a risk. We don't open up to others. We don't let others in. We don't trust people again, because we're scared of what would happen, and it's safe to be in a comfort zone. So that's the other thing, recognize your psychology. You recognize your inner talk and what's further limiting you and not allowing you to succeed, because the only thing you need to be doing on any given day is mastering yourself. Everybody around you, all your experiences are there to reflect your own definition of yourself. So if you're in circumstances that are not living up to your vision, that is because your inner definition of yourself, you're getting what you believe you're worthy of. You really are getting what you believe you're worthy of. So you want to not change it from the outside, you want to change it from the inside, and change that internal dynamic to realize that you're worthy of this and not this, and everything else will rise to meet you there. And then you keep elevating. And the other thing with failure is, you recognize your freeze points. You don't mix it up with any other labels like procrastination, And the other thing is, you set your goals, you set higher goals for yourself. So we're not talking about, having a cup of coffee, etc. You want to set leading goals, legacy goals for yourself, because when Stephen Covey wrote 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, one of the things was, imagine yourself at a funeral, and it's your funeral. And what is everybody's saying about you? What is your legacy? And attitude is everything when it comes to failure. Attitude is everything. If I say I have to wake up today because I've got to pay the bills and I've got to put food on the table for my family, that feels really heavy. I've got to pay the bills, so I may or may not get the money today. I may be let go from work. I don't know how long I'm going to have this job in this COVID times. I don't know how I'm going to put food on the table. My community has not succeeded. My family line has been cursed. So it feels heavy because it's got all this other negative momentum on it. Whereas if you say, hang on, today I need to wake up because I need to create my legacy. I need to build on my legacy. That has a totally different meaning from a connotation. The attitude and feeling and energy is completely different from I need to put food on the table and I need to pay the bills. So attitude and the meanings you attach to things is very, very important. So you need to understand your distortion and the false meaning you put into something. So in the example of the business success where my friend put out a document and he can't reproduce another document this year as opposed to last year because of the failure he experienced last year, he needs to understand that it's not a failure, it's a milestone. He's got his skills that no one can buy, no one can take away. You can't put a number on it because it's worth millions, it's worth your freedom, it's worth everything, So that's the one thing. The other thing was feeling embarrassed and feeling like no one will understand. When you open up to me, you got to be discerning about who you open up to in your circle. You can't just open up to anybody. So you got to really respect someone, and you got to respect that they are objective and unbiased enough, and they are higher enough in their evolutionary movement, to open up to them and respect them. And if you don't have that person, get a coach, get someone, go and see someone, online that you admire and respect, or go and look at a motivation self-development clip. But when he opened up, he felt accepted. you realize that, hang on a second, I actually do have people in my space that support me, that love me and care for me. He didn't feel alone. So that was the other distortion. He felt like he was embarrassed, he was living a lie, and he couldn't open up to people. And when he did do that, it made such a massive difference. The other thing that he started to do, and I've started to do as well, was just build in discipline, build in goals in my day. And I know this is easier said than done. It's easier to just sit in bed and be frozen, or take that meeting, or just go about your work and just finish your work at the end of the day and barely make it in time for dinner with the family and cooking, and exhausted, depleted. But you have to keep building in those quality moments, that are going to set you apart from your old self. It's going to pursue the new self, the new version of you, and that's the person you're chasing. The only person I'm chasing in my life is the better version of me. That's it, full stop. I'm not chasing anybody else, any person, any better country, any better place of living, any better economic condition. Those things will come. I just want to be the better version of that I can be today. I want to do something different. So that's the other distortion, that you're not going to make it. So start introducing little things that create that discipline. Write out your higher goals that are going to build your legacy. Higher goals that, looking back at the end of your life, what people would have said about you, what you would have said about yourself, what your kids will proudly laugh and talk about. So you want to build those things, and create those disciplines in your life every day. And even if you don't feel like it, if you do one thing different today, one thing from what you did yesterday, it's going to blow you out of the water. Because who I was yesterday, I'm a little bit better today, and tomorrow I want to go for that a little bit better version of myself. And I just want to build and build and build on that each day. I don't want to sit in blame of others. I don't want to sit in blame of, this business colleague did that to me, this person did that to me in my life. If they didn't do this to me, I would be year there, I would be much better. No, lose that narrative of blaming other people and holding them accountable. Let it go. That's the past. Let it go. Just build on your future. Focus on what's in front of you. Don't focus on what's missing. Wayne Dyer. Don't focus on what's missing. Okay? So you can do it. And this was just an introduction into failure. There was a lot more we can talk about failure, different tools, tactics in different scenarios. So please like, share, and subscribe, and do something different today. You can do it. I'm trying to do it. I'm trying to the best of my abilities. Some days I win, some days I lose. But there's an incremental, increase towards that better version of myself. Okay, so you can do it, and we can both do it. So take care. Please like, share, and subscribe.